Got a dream in a tear last night, watched the world fade out of sight. Seen the ghosts of time preside, eagles soared and falcons cried. Sleeping phoenix on a rise. Abundance and strange the skies. Strange the skies.
Hello, and welcome to Phoenix Rising. When the bard, Shakespeare, first had his plays on the stage of the Globe Theatre in London, it was the beginning of the 17th century. And coincidental to that, to the beginning of that century, was a huge change that took place in the global cycles that impact humanity. And global cycles are something that we measure according to the precession of the equinox. And we entered into a cycle in the beginning of the 1700s that's called the cross of planning. The cross of planning cycle can be seen within the design mandala as a very specific cross configuration that includes the 9th gate, the 16th gate, the 40th gate, and the 37th gate. This cycle, the cross of planning, is really the world that we understand in the sense that we are a byproduct of this consistent, constant background frequency that has been impacting us for over, 400 years. And this cycle is going to come to an end. That is, this cycle is going to close in 2027. What is the cross of planning? What does it mean in that sense to have a background frequency? Everything about the nature of conditioning is control. The background frequency is a grand control mechanism that keeps us focused in certain ways. Everything about this particular cycle that we are in, that our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents have all been a part of, is rooted in the channel 4037, the channel of community, the channel of the bargain, the channel of work for the benefit of one's own. Everything about the 4037, everything about the way in which it operates can be extrapolated into the world that we live in today. The way our communities grew, the way in which they expanded until we entered into a viability of a world as we have it today, in which billions and billions and billions of us can live on this plane, totally dependent on the interconnectiveness that exists within our communities. It is this inherent bargain of the 4037 that allows us to know that when we go down to the local supermarket, that the goods are going to be there, that have come from here and there and all over, and that everybody in that contractual arrangement is going to be dealt with fairly. That when we go to the bus stop, we're certain that the bus is going to come. This is 4037. The channel, the background frequency that has locked us together into our city-states and eventually into our nation-states, that provides the underlying agreements that we call laws, both national and international, that bind us together. It's part of the background frequency. And it's going away. Something to think about, isn't it? Well, let's get on with our show.
Allora, I'm a manifesting generator, emotional, and that's it.
That's it?
A 4-6 profile. I met it 3 years ago. I was at home actually, came a friend of mine to visit me, and she started to speak about, do you know human design? I said, well, it looks a strange name. I told her, what is that about? And then she stayed in my house for 3 months after that. That was really useful to me because I have this emotional wave. I wasn't aware of it at all, at all. It's a manifested emotional definition, you know what I mean? Individual. It's a channel of openness. It's like, can be really something especially in a family. I have 3 children, and you know, it was very delicate situation at the time. I just came.
So it's
Perfect.
helped a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
It changed my life, actually. I mean, it changed myself. The way I looked at myself deeply, without being as a ping pong ball in life, no? Just going pam, 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 pam. No, stop it. Look at it. Look at you. Look who you are. How important it is to recognize and not follow convictions or ideas, ideals. Oh my goodness, I was really caught up at that time and saved my life. And I had the opportunity to choose something that looked from outside something really revolutionary, but went exactly perfect, with no resistance. And I was blocked 7 years on that point, just not choosing, no, 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 no. And then I did, and it was just perfect.
In your life.
The way I look at things, the way I feel things, the way I react or not. I mean, everything just started to came to me instantaneously. I mean, after 1 year, let's say, into the experiment, because I'm skeptical, normally, I'm skeptical. And then I want to experiment before to say anything about. And my experiment was about, okay, let's see. And things started to come to me. And I just needed to respond. Oh my God, I couldn't believe it. I'm high. And I mean, it was easier for me because, I mean, I have 3 children. So let's say high and is left fixed. So it's not right fixed. That has to be like harmonic, and it's left fixed. So can be a sound on the background. At the same time, when I knew it, I started to observe my body that really likes to stop in places, public places, to eat. So when I'm outside and there is movement and there is something, I want to sit down and eat. And this is nice. And then I started to put music on when I eat. It works in a way, but it's very short time. It's only 6 months, so I don't have much to say about it. I need to wait.
Hello, and welcome to your Neutrino Weather Report. And this week is really about judgment. I mean, judgment is really the theme, and judgment will be suspended later in the week. But the judgment is there, the North Node in the 58th gate, and particularly Saturn, and you can see that Saturn in the 18th gate, and they form this definition of the channel of judgment. And so much of the channel of judgment in terms of the way in which it operates in the outside world, in the homogenized world, is that there is a lot of pressure this week dealing with dissatisfaction, seeing things that aren't working, complaining about things. There's going to be a tremendous amount of dissatisfied energy that's going to be put out in the not-self realm. It will change, that is, there will be a break to it, but given that the sun is transiting from the 57 into the 32 during this week, that we have a lot of pressure on our basic fear mechanisms in the spleen. So many beings are going to be deeply, deeply absorbed in the fears that are being initiated in the program. And remember something about those of you that have an undefined spleen. This week, as you can see with this definition of the 1858, the spleen is going to be defined. Now, if you have an undefined spleen, your natural tendency is to hold on to things that aren't good for you. It's the not-self of it. But when a transit comes by, or somebody steps in and hooks up your spleen, there's always this potential of letting go of things that are really good for you. Be careful, those of you with an undefined spleen, this week particularly, in letting go of anything. Just watch and wait for the transit to move, because you may end up cutting ties with work or people that in fact are actually beneficial for you. Towards the end of the week, we get the transition. That is, that we get Saturn finally leaving the 18th gate. When it leaves the 18th gate, takes all the pressure off that channel, and it goes into the 48th gate. The 48th gate is a gate of depth. It's looking for the potential to offer solutions. Don't get fooled. You know, if you're not somebody that has naturally the 48th gate, you know, you suddenly wake up with this sense of, oh, I got the answer, which doesn't necessarily mean that you do have the answer. Whatever the weather is going to be, you know, you have your neutrino umbrella. That is your strategy and authority. As long as you're experimenting with your strategy and authority, the weather is for your pleasure. Have a nice week. All you have to do is look at a body graph, anybody's body graph, your design, somebody else's, to understand our vulnerability. You see all that whiteness that is there, the whiteness that is there in open gates, open channels, open centers. We all have that. And it's something to recognize about that openness, is that it is that openness that is so subject to conditioning. Now think about what happens to you when you're asleep. For most of the history of humanity, we have slept in very tight bundles. Families sleeping together, large groups of beings sleeping together. Still in many parts of the world, that is so. But it is something to understand about the nature of conditioning, and that you are conditioned at your deepest when you're sleeping. And that when you're sleeping with somebody else, you are conditioned by them. Imagine what it's like to be somebody that, you know, is undefined in this way or that, and they sleep with somebody who brings that definition, who brings those connections, who changes the basic mechanic of what you are going to experience or not while you're unconscious. And that when you wake up in the morning, you do not wake up as yourself, you wake up in the aura of another. It is no longer you, it is no longer this or that, it is the thing that becomes the whole that's larger than the sum of its parts, and it's not really you. And waking up in someone else's aura predetermines the way in which you're going to react to whatever is going to take place at that point. Never in your own authority. Never in the purity of what it is to actually be you. One of the first things to learn about entering into this experiment of strategy and authority and operating correctly as yourself is that you need to protect your aura and be aware of its vulnerability. And most important, what I've been telling people from the very beginning of my work, from the very first readings that I did, sleep in your own bed. Sleep in your own bed. It's an extraordinary step forward in the transformation of your consciousness.
Got a dream in a tear last night, watched the world fade out of sight. Seen the ghosts of time preside, eagles soared and falcons cried. Sleeping phoenix on a rise. Abundance and strange the skies.